Hello everyone, good morning. Our report is all about the Adventures of Odysseus.
On Mount Olympus, the gods were debating whether Odysseus should return home. Eventually, Zeus decides Odysseus should return, so he sends Hermes, the messenger god, to tell Calypso to set Odysseus free, while the goddess Athena goes to Odysseus' son Telemachus to help him find out what happened to his father, because he and his mother's palace is being overrun with suitors after their fortune. Athena, in disguise, convinces him to go to Nestor, who fought with Odysseus in the Trojan War. But he does not know what happened to him. He suggests to go to Menelaus, who knows that Odysseus is stranded with Calypso. Meanwhile, Hermes travels to Calypso's island, and she agrees to let Odysseus go. So he sets sail on a small raft, but it is destroyed during a storm created by Poseidon, the god of the sea. Eventually, he washes up on the shore of the Phaeacians, who welcome him and declare a holiday in his honor. Odysseus proves his strength by throwing a discus farther than anyone else. Then, King Alcinous asks him who he is, so Odysseus starts his story. After leaving Troy, Odysseus and his men attacked a city, but reinforcements arrive and they had to flee. Then they came upon the Lotus Eaters, where many of his men ate a strange plant and lost all desire to go home. But Odysseus dragged them away, only to land on the Cyclopes island, where they were locked in Polyphemus, the Cyclops' cave. But Odysseus blinded him and tricked him into moving the boulder blocking the exit. After sailing more, they came upon the Keeper of the Winds, who gave Odysseus a bag of wind to blow them back to Ithaca. But his men opened it, and it blew them the wrong way, where they landed on the giant Laestrygonians, who threw boulders at Odysseus' ship, killing many of his men. They escaped and came to the witch Circe, who turned Odysseus' men into pigs, then told him to go to the underworld and find a prophet. In the underworld, Odysseus talked to Tiresias, the prophet, who tells him the path to Ithaca. Then they passed the Sirens, who lure sailors to crash on their rocks, but Odysseus' men tied him to the mast of the ship. Once they passed the Sirens, they came upon the whirlpool Charybdis. To avoid it, they passed Scylla, a six-headed monster who ate 6 of Odysseus' men. Next, they came to the island of the sun, where Odysseus' men sacrificed the sun's sacred cattle, and the ship was destroyed, leaving Odysseus as the sole survivor to wash up on Calypso's island. When Alcinous hears Odysseus' story, he gives him a ship and sends him back to Ithaca. When he gets there, Odysseus wants to make sure that everyone is still loyal to him after being gone for 20 years. So Athena gives him a disguise as a beggar. He then meets his swineherd Eumaeus, who welcomes Odysseus, not knowing who he is. Telemachus returns to Ithaca, and Odysseus reveals himself to his son. They then plan to kill the suitors. The next day there is a contest to string Odysseus' bow and send an arrow through 12 axes. Out of all the suitors, Odysseus is the only one who can do it. Then, as Antinous, the leader of the suitors, is taking a drink, Odysseus shoots an arrow at him and kills him. Odysseus and Telemachus battle with all the suitors and kill them. After all the suitors are gone, Penelope, Odysseus' wife, tests him to make sure that it's him. Then she truly believes him. But the relatives of the suitors want to kill Odysseus. But Athena convinces all of them to live in peace.
My name is Rana Jane Geb, the first reporter. The setting of the story takes place at the Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. Odysseus is the husband of Queen Penelope and the father of Prince Telemachus, the strong and courageous warrior. He is the most renowned for his cunning. He is the favorite of the goddess Athena, who often sent him at divine aid, but bitter enemy of Poseidon, who frustrates his journey at every turn. Telemachus is the Odysseus' son, an infant when Odysseus left for Troy. Telemachus is about 20 at the beginning of the story. He is a natural obstacle to the suitors desperately courting his mother, but despite his courage and good heart, he initially lacks the poise and confidence to oppose them. Penelope, wife of Odysseus and mother of Telemachus. Penelope spent her days in the palace pining for her husband who left for Troy for 20 years and earlier and never returned. Athena, daughter of Zeus and goddess of wisdom, purposeful battle and womanly arts. Athena assists Odysseus and Telemachus with divine powers throughout the epic, and she speaks up for them to the council of gods of Mount Olympus. Calypso, the beautiful nymph who falls in love with Odysseus when he lands on her island home of Ogygia. Calypso held him in the prisoner there were for 7 years until Hermes, the messenger of God, persuaded her to let him go. Circe, the beautiful witch goddess who transformed Odysseus' crew into swine when he lands on her island. With Hermes' help, Odysseus resists Circe's power and then becomes her lover, living in luxury and her side for a year. Poseidon, god of the sea. Poseidon is the patron of the seafaring Phoenicians, who ultimately helped to return Odysseus to Ithaca. Zeus, king of gods and men who mediates the disputes of gods on Mount Olympus. Zeus is occasionally depicted as weighing men's fates in his scales. He sometimes helps Odysseus or permits Athena to do the same. Anthenius is the most arrogant of Penelope's suitor. Anthenius led the campaign to the Telemachus guild. Unlike the other suitors, he is never portrayed sympathetically, and he is the first to die when Odysseus returned. Eurymachus, a manipulative, deceitful suitor. Eurymachus' charisma and duplicity allow him to exert some influence over other suitors. Amphinomus, among the dozen suitors, he is the only decent man seeking Penelope's hand in marriage. Amphinomus sometimes speaks up for Odysseus and Telemachus, but he is killed like the rest of the suitors in the final fight. Eumaeus, the loyal shepherd who, along with the cowherd Pileotus, helped Odysseus reclaim his throne after his return to Ithaca. Even though he does not know that the vagabond who appeared at his hunt is Odysseus, Eumaeus gives the man food and shelter. Euryclea, the aged and loyal servant who nursed Odysseus and Telemachus when they were babies. Euryclea is well informed about the palace intrigues and served as a confidant to her masters. Melanchus is the brother of Melanto. Melanchus is opportunistic goatherd who support the suitors, especially Eurymachus, and abuses the beggar to appear in Odysseus' palace, not realizing that the man is Odysseus himself. Melanto is the sister of Melanchus and maidservant in the Odysseus palace. Melanto abuses the beggar in the palace, not knowing that the man is Odysseus. She is having an affair with Eurymachus. Polyphemus, one of the Cyclops, uncivilized one-eyed giant, whose island Odysseus comes to soon after leaving Troy. Polyphemus imprisons Odysseus and his crew and tries to eat them. But Odysseus blinds him through a clever rush and manages to escape. Laertes, Odysseus' aging father who resides on a farm in Ithaca. In despair and physical decline, Laertes regains his spirit when Odysseus returns and eventually kills Antinous' father. Thracians, a Theban prophet who inhabits the underworld. Thracian means Odysseus when Odysseus journeyed to the underworld in the book. He shows Odysseus how to get back to Ithaca and allow Odysseus to communicate with the other soul in Hades. Nestor, king of Pylos and a former warrior in the Trojan War. Nestor is known as clever speaker. Menelaus, king of Sparta, brother of Agamemnon, and husband of Helen, he helped to lead the Greeks in the Trojan War. Helen, wife of Menelaus and queen of Sparta. Helen's abduction from Sparta by the Trojans sparked to the Trojan War. Her beauty is without parallel, but she is criticized for giving in to her Trojan captors and thereby costing many Greek men to their lives. Agamemnon, former king of Mycenae, brother of Menelaus, and commander of the Achaean forces at Troy. Nausicaa, the beautiful daughter of King Alcenius and Queen Arete of the Phoenicians. Nausicaa discovered Odysseus on the beach of Scheria and out of bonding the affection for him, ensured his warm reception and her parents' palace. Alcinous, king of Phoenicians, who offers Odysseus hospitality in his island kingdom of Scheria. Alcinous hears the story of Odysseus' wanderings and provides him with safe passage back to Ithaca. Arete, queen of Phoenicians, wife of Alcenius and mother of Nausicaa. Arete is intelligent and influential. Nausicaa tells Odysseus to make his appeal for assistance to Arete. The protagonist of the story is Odysseus. Odysseus fought among the other Greek heroes at Troy and now is struggling to return to his kingdom in Ithaca. Odysseus is the husband of Queen Penelope and the father of Prince Telemachus. The antagonist of the story is Poseidon. In his divine antagonist, he despises Odysseus for blinding his son and Cyclops Polyphemus and constantly hampers his journey home. The tone of Odyssey evolves from somber and mournful to joyful, excited as Odysseus gets closer to completing his quest. Odysseus is a dynamic character because he changes throughout the story.
The Adventures of Odysseus. Conflict. One of the conflicts happening in the story occurs on the island of Icaria, where Odysseus meets the Cyclops of Polyphemus. The Cyclops traps Odysseus and some of his men in a cave where he immediately eats two of them. But the main conflict is Odysseus trying to get home. Plot. While Odysseus battles mystical creatures and faces the wrath of the gods, his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus stave off suitors vying for Penelope's hand and Ithaca's throne long for enough Odysseus to return. Foreshadowing. Helen tells the story of how Odysseus disguised himself as a beggar to sneak into Troy during the Trojan War, foreshadowing the disguise he uses to enter Ithaca at the end of the poem. This exactly foreshadows the tactics Odysseus employs, with Athena's help, to re-enter Ithaca. Symbolism. Odysseus' bow. Primarily, the bow symbolizes the physical superiority of the king, an important point in a world in which the mighty prevail. But the bow also symbolizes the maturity and perhaps the character of the king. The sea. The sea itself is a recurring symbol throughout the epic. It is, in effect, the sea of life. The sea represents a great man's journey through life with all its victories and heartbreaks. Ithaca. The island of Ithaca symbolizes home. There Odysseus can share his life with his beloved wife and son, enjoy the wealth that he has earned, eat the food of his youth, and even sleep in the bed that he built. Ithaca symbolizes the end of the journey, the goal of the mythic trek. Nevertheless, it is not gained without a fight. Odysseus symbolizes as a man of outstanding wisdom and shrewdness, eloquence, resourcefulness, courage, and endurance. The theme of the story. The Odyssey follows its hero and protagonist Odysseus as he fights to get home after the Trojan War. There are three major themes in the story: hospitality, loyalty, and vengeance. Lesson. All I can say is that each one has a tale or two associated with it, but the moral lesson we can get in the story include loyalty, compassion, self-control, and perseverance.